Funding for this program is provided by Deco Art of Stanford, Kentucky, manufacturers of liquid acrylic paints.
Hello there. Thank you for joining me. We're going to paint a nice, quiet country scene today. The name of it's Rural Route 2. Let's just go right to the palette and get started. First thing we're going to do is put out a puddle of white. To the white, we're going to add Ebony Black, and this is going to be used in the sky. Don't want to scare you to death, but it's going to be beautiful. Touch of Ebony Black. Okay, now we'll go to the canvas. And I'm going to wet this entire sky area with water. Oh, that's just making too much of a scratchy sound. Let's go to a fan brush. We're painting a nice, quiet country scene. Okay, I'm coating the sky with water, and then I'm going to coat it with a mixture of Snow White with a touch of Ebony Black. Now just a touch. You don't want gray. You want your white tinted just a tad. Okay, now we're going to coat the entire canvas. This is sort of a soft day, a hazy day. So we're helping ourselves to begin with by getting a value established of a soft, quiet, hazy day. Now I'm going to use some pretty colors. We're going to kind of patchwork that to brighten it up a little bit. Antique Gold, Boysenberry, and True Blue, quiet soft blue. Okay, let's start with the Antique Gold. Notice that I didn't wash my brush, but I am going to wet it just a little bit to make the paint glide easily. Start in the horizon, both sides of the canvas. Okay, now I'm going to skip up. I'm going to kind of hop and skip all over the sky area. A little bit here and a little bit at there, and sort of get some pretty colors just kind of patchworked in there. Boysenberry, soft pinks. Okay, now wash the brush and we'll use the True Blue. That True Blue is going to be too true, so what I'm going to do is add a little bit of the mixture, the gray mixture to it, to take it down, to cut some of the intensity out of it. There we go. A little here and a little there. And although we have what's considered bright colors, we still have a soft, hazy day. I'm going to take a mop and just very gently blend the edges of the patches. And one color sort of fusing into the other, giving us the soft, muted look. Oh, I think we're in good shape there. Okay, there's a great big tree that goes here. This is a cabin or an old shack, and there's a great big tree that goes behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that in while the sky is wet, so I can use the wet sky to help me get my perspective in the edges of the tree. Thin them out, so that it looks like you can see through the edges of the tree. Midnight green and dark chocolate. Brush mix, dip your brush into each puddle 2 or 3 times before you start applying the paint to the canvas. Now I'm going to start right above the roof here. This is a pretty big tree too. Let's extend it a little bit. Okay, now let's go start stippling. One thing you want to remember when you're laying in this type tree is you want to keep these edges ragged. You do want to be able to see through them. And by using the wet sky, that kind of gives me a little head start here. I don't have to go back and wet the canvas or add other colors to get the soft effect. My brush just picks up the wet sky colors that are surrounding this tree. And it thins the edges out for me. And as you know, we're using acrylic paints. This whole series is done in acrylics, and they liquid acrylics, which I dearly love. A lot of the blending is already done for you, and they're so inexpensive to work with. Just good all the way around. Let me get a dry brush over here. Soften those edges just a little bit. Now this is a mop. Now I want to get a little more distance in the edges of the tree. Looks, you know, like you can see the sun or the day, soft day kind of filtering through your edges. Oh, I like that. Okay, now let's go back to the same brush again. Same colors. And we want to lay some background trees in through here. Just lay your color down and then stipple upward. Right through here too, there's a little bit, there's a little opening right there between the porch and this grassy area back in here. Okay, now let's go back to our stippling. Going to catch a little bit on this side, and then I'll go back over here because I want to add some more colors to that side while it's still wet, but I want to do the same thing while this side's still wet. So let's just jump over here, get this one laid in, and then move back across. Now if your brush picks up too much of your sky color, keep a paper towel in your hand like I do. Just give it a swipe every so often. Take the paint off the brush and reload. I don't go back and wash the brush because I don't want to get the bristles real wet. Let the paint get soupy. Okay, now let's jump back over here and let's put some pretty colors. Let's use Boysenberry and the blue. Soften the edges just a little bit more. Just kind of tap here and there. Really makes a difference, doesn't it? Let's go over here and do the same thing. All right, now we're going to put a big tree here later on, so while we're working with this Boysenberry and blue, let's put a background for it. Going to put a big old green tree there. I don't want it quite that high. And this is another good thing about this paint. It's gone. And who will ever know that we ever had a tree there? Just tap it right down. Okay, let's let while this area is drying, let's work on the lower part of the house. For that, I'm going to use the dark chocolate, white, and Georgia clay. sort of a thin mixture. Got the Georgia clay to kind of brighten it up a little bit. The dark chocolate to kind of take it back down and give it an older look so that it won't look brand new. And the white to lighten. Now that's an easy mixture, isn't it? Right on around the front. Okay, now we have a little decision we have to make now. And I've already made it. We're going to let our light come from this area, so this side of the house is going to have to go a little bit lighter. I'm going to use a little antique gold and white. Brighten it up just a bit. But I'm doing it in vertical strokes to make it appear that they're old, kind of worn boards there. Okay, now let's go to the dark chocolate and the ebony black and put the shadow. And soften the shadow downward. Down, down, down. And from this corner right here, we'll darken the building just a little bit. That's dry enough. Let's put the roof on. Georgia clay and dark chocolate. Real thin paint this time. Just catch the overhang while we're at it, and then we'll go back to the porch roof right here. Little more dark chocolate in the separating the porch roof from the house roof. Little shadow up in here in your ridge roll. Okay, let's start on the path now. We're going to use antique gold. Let's use a little bit gray mixture and soften it. Soften the gold just a little bit and give it a sandy look. Kind of like the sand in the Carolinas. Yeah, beautiful white sand there. And I mean, it is hot white sand. We used to visit there. Well, I still do. And that sand is H-O-T. Okay, now let's go back to the midnight green and the dark chocolate and fill in the rest of our greenery down in here. And blend our edges while our path is dry. We'll catch every bit of this while we have this mixture mixed up. Right on into the path. Now notice sometimes I pick up a little more dark chocolate than the green. Sometimes I pick up a little more green. That keeps your ground area from looking flat. It gives you some interest. It looks like you have, some of the grasses a little bit higher than others. Have little peaks and valleys. Okay, let's go to this side and fill in this area. Down into the path, down into the path, down into the, or road, whichever you want it to be. It's your painting. It can be either one you want it to be. Okay, now let's stipple up on the house. It's like there's some shrubbery or something growing around it. Little on this side. And I'm using a great big old brush for that. You might want to use a smaller brush. But I just happened to have it in my hand and I just kept going with it. I'll darken this tree right in the middle just a little so I can put a pretty highlight in there in a minute. All right, now let's go back to the cabin and add some blue to the roof. To the edges. Notice the strokes. They follow this angle. Let's get a little blue on the overhang. Little blue here and there through the... This is a little bit wet and it's kind of bleeding right there. I believe I'll leave that alone, come back to that later. We don't want a bleeding house or a bleeding heart. This will be the porch right through here. Steps, rather. Same mixtures. Shorten up these edges just a little bit. How would you like a window? Don't you think we need them? And a way for these people to get in and out. Let's tighten them up just a little. Have you ever noticed before you put the post on the porch how it looks like somebody looking at you? Underpaint the post and highlight. Okay, now the path is pretty, but it looks too new, doesn't it? Looks too clean. Let's dirty it just a little bit with the dark chocolate. Now that's looking like a place where somebody lives. It did look like my grandmother's yard used to. She used to sweep it. Okay, let's start a few highlights or a few pretty flowers down in here. The blue and the white, and I'm going to add a touch of the gray mixture to it. That looks awfully bright to work with this painting. Little of the gray mixture. In fact, it wouldn't hurt to add a little of your gray to the entire painting, with the exception of the roof, and we added the burnt umber to that. Boysenberry in the, oh, Norma, wash your brush. I do get carried away. Let's get some white so we can have some pretty pink flowers. There we go. Notice that they are at an angle. They don't go straight across. I bet I've told you that so much you almost know what I'm going to say each time, but it's so important. All right, a few highlights in the tree now. Let's use Georgia clay and too bright. Georgia clay, antique gold. Now I went back to a little bit of the mixture that I painted the tree with to start with because that mixture was a little too bright, and added it to it. I want to use the same mixture to get some highlights on some banks right through here. And back in here. Let's do a few back here also. Break up this monotony back in here. Dry and blend. Soften the path back in there a little bit. I believe we can get the blue on the roof now. Let's give it a go. I'm willing if you are. And it worked just beautifully. Let's brighten this a little bit. Okay, now we have some fence posts that are kind of nestled into this grassy and the flower area. What do you think I used? Dark chocolate, ebony black, snow white. Highlight, antique gold, snow white. Now don't forget you can go over these highlights as many times as you need to. I see a little area that's not pleasing to me. Let's fix it. Let's get some more flowers nestled around the cabin. All right, to take sort of the stiff look out of it, let's let some of this foliage hang out over the path. Let's put a few weeds out in here. Let's use the fan brush to put the weeds. What do you think I'm using? Same green mixture. Let's take this greenery on up just a little bit higher right here. Same mixtures. Put us some conical shaped trees in here. You see, I'm deliberately not overlapping all of my purple. I want that to show. That is so important for it to show. You know, let's brighten up this side of the cabin a little bit, the sunny side. Antique gold and white, vertical strokes. Gives you the effect of boards, and we haven't painted board 1. Let's tighten this up just a bit right here. A little bit deeper shadow. And to perfect it, let's take a few bites out of this roof at the bottom. Keep it from looking brand new. Let's take a little bite out of this side over in here. A little bit more of a shadow here. I believe that's about all we have time for today. I've enjoyed being with you every minute of it. Thank you.